today. Today we're going to be talking about a very interesting topic, which is about our relationship with the internet. Okay, so we're going to be introducing DIDI, telling you about the institute and the kinds of things that we do. Also, we're going to be discussing the Agile Factory, which is a project we created to respond to the challenges of COVID-19. And the project that we're seeing here today, although not directly related to the Agile Factory, it actually has paved the way for us to be able to actually begin thinking about the projects for the Agile Factory. We have 3 different projects. One of them is related to data, and this project came from a course that I'm giving at DIDI, and this course is called Data Aesthetics. And in this course, we explore everything about data. The meaning of the word data, the networks that data allows us to create in digital networks, the connections that we can make based on the information that we create based on this data, and of course, how do we use this data to make sense of the world and also to make sense of our own selves. So this was a bit of the focus of the class. And today we're going to be discussing one of the activities that we've done as part of this course, which was about creating a data visualization, digital data visualization of processes that are about self-awareness. And so we have a student here with us today. His name is Mohammed Basim, and he's going to be showing to you the work that he has done for this class. So before I introduce you to Basim and he can show you his work, let's maybe watch the video. And before we watch the video, also just a reminder, please, if you want to ask something, you can press this little button here where you can raise your hand, and then I can organize who says what, so I can organize the questions better, okay? Or you can actually, let's do it differently. If you want to ask a question, can you use the chat box? You can write your questions, and then I can read them. Okay, let's do like that. Thank you so much. So Razam, can we see the DIDI video?
No great thing, no beautiful invention happened just like that. It happens when we leave our comfort zone and embrace change, creativity, and out of the ordinary. We live in interesting times. We live in a world that's constantly asking questions, that's constantly changing. In a world where blockchain and robots will be the norm, where 85% of tomorrow's jobs don't exist yet, where being multi-skilled is not just celebrated, but essential. At Dubai Institute of Design and Innovation, we believe that we need to prepare you for the future, to teach you skills that will power your tomorrow. Today, design matters more than ever. But how can design help, you may ask? We combine disciplines so you become well-rounded. From product design, multimedia design, fashion design, strategic design management, it's where you will learn how to merge different design disciplines. presenting a 4-year Bachelor of Design degree in collaboration with MIT and Parsons' new School of Design. DIDI, not just another design university.
Okay, thank you so much. So let me introduce you to Basim. Can we see you, Basim?
Hi, just a second. I'm trying to set up from my computer. I'm having a technical difficulty. Just a second.
Okay. Okay. So as we wait for Basim to do the setup, the technical setup, let me tell you a little bit more about this course, data aesthetics. Let's try to think about something that we all have experienced, right? For example, when you're looking at your phones or your computer and you're using a social media network, and then all of a sudden you see an ad, right? So let's say something that you bought online, all of a sudden all you see is ads for that thing that you bought. Why do you think that happens? How many of you have actually experienced that? Anyone? No one?
Yeah.
So why do you think that happens? Why is it that every time you Google something, how is it that if you Google something, how is it that then when you go on Facebook, then all of a sudden all the ads that you see, it's about that product that you were Googling about? How do you think that happens? Have you ever wondered and asked yourself, like, why am I seeing this and not that? Right? Why? How is Google connected to Facebook? And what kinds of information is Google sending to Facebook about me, about myself? It's an interesting question, right? So cookies, okay. So codes, interesting. Yes, it's different kinds of words that you can use. Cookies, the software called SEO, search engine optimization. Everything is related, but actually there's another name that is actually more relevant. It's called, I'm actually typing it in the chat room right now, algorithms. Algorithms. Does anybody know what algorithm is? What an algorithm is? Is it the first time that you're hearing these commands? Interesting. The commands are actually coming from the algorithm. The algorithm is actually before the command. It's a set of instructions that needs data. It's actually a system. It's a system of information, rules to be followed in calculations, exactly. But those calculations come from what? Come from computation. Those calculations come from computation, which then process that data and then presses the on button on that certain set of instructions, and that's how everything becomes automated. So when you are Googling, let's say I want to go to Disneyland, and then the algorithm is actually seeing that, and so it says, oh, wants to go to Disneyland. So that information is then translated into that instructions. The rules are given to that information. Okay, whenever we have this information, we give this to the advertisers. And then who are the advertisers that are interested to know when a person wants to go to Disneyland? What kinds of companies are going to want this information? Disney, what else? Tourist companies, flying, aerospace, aviation, all these people that transportation, tourism, entertainment, all these kinds of industries that are related to that specific market, then it's valuable to them. And this is something that can be sold, right? So the companies, every time that you Google something, you are putting a little bit of information about yourself, about your interests, right? So if you're Googling about going to Disneyland, you are telling Google, I want to go to Disneyland. So this is something that Google knows about you now. Okay, yes, big data companies. So they know about this and they make a little image of you. So, okay, if you Google, I want to go to Disneyland, it means you like Disneyland. And this information goes to those companies and stays there. And slowly by slowly, with big data, there's an image of yourself that's being created. That's there on the internet based on everything you do online. So everything you do online, you have to be really careful because everything you're doing is being stored by those algorithms. There is no, you cannot just go for, like, let's say, you can't just go for a ride, you know, in virtual spaces and everything. You have to come back. And when you come back, you leave footprints. Every time you go on the internet, when you come back to real life, you left a lot of footprints. And then those footprints, you can make a lot of things. So the work that we've done with the students in data aesthetics, we were working with the footprints and trying to raise awareness of the traces that are created by your activities online. So Basim, can you tell us a little bit about your experience with your digital footprints? And if you could please, like, just tell the story of how the work that we've done in the class made you, I don't know, the awareness in relation to the traces that you were leaving or your habits, just as a little introduction before you show us your work. Would that be okay?
Yes, of course.
Thank you so much. You can share your screen anytime you want, okay?
Okay.
So you can tell us a little bit about yourself as well so that people can get to know you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Basim. I am a second year student in DIDI. I'm studying fashion, and the other major is still undecided as of right now. So do you guys know what aesthetic means?
That's a good
Aesthetic.
question. Yeah. What is aesthetic, everyone? You can type your answers on the chat. When you hear this word aesthetic, what do you think about? Aesthetic? Yes. What is aesthetics? Beauty.
Okay.
That's the
Yes.
first thing we think, right? Concerned with beauty or
Yeah.
appreciation of beauty. Aesthetic. That's the most common understanding of beauty, right? We think about aesthetic, we think about something that's beautiful. Well, appreciating beauty, that's not exactly what we want to discuss today. We want to use the definition for aesthetic that comes from philosophy, okay? So in philosophy, aesthetic is something that is not restricted just to beauty. It's something that's about something that's much more, it's much more than just beauty. It's about every time you experience something with your senses. So it's related to your perception. Every experience that you perceive with your eyes, with your ears, that you and the combination of all the different kinds of perceptions that we have, when they come together, this is an experience, and this experience is called aesthetic. So when we say I have an aesthetic reaction to something, what it means is this is my impression of that something. So for example, when you listen to a song that you really, really like, and when you don't like that song, you don't necessarily have to like something for you to have an aesthetic experience. You can you can really not like it, and still it's still going to be an aesthetic experience. So ugliness, can ugliness be a kind of aesthetic? Yes. Yes. Because the aesthetic, what it means is the experience, is the experience of looking at something, of listening to something, of using your senses to experience something. Okay, so this is the kind of definition that we're using here today. Okay, Basim, so I'll let you do your presentation now.
Yeah, so basically aesthetic has to do with like beauty and how you present. I mean, it has to do with like presentation or like visuals, right? So for this project, we had to present data that deals with social media, basically. And Professor Renata was kind enough to give us like the freedom to interpret that however we want. Like each student had their own personal approach to it. Some people collected data on what kind of ads do they get or on social media, or some just literally documented what apps they use the most and so on, and how much time that would take. But for me, I personally decided to take a more personal and close to heart approach to this project. As a student with two learning disorder, it is very easy for me to get caught up or in feelings or get distracted with my thoughts, or different kinds of struggles. So I was often advised by my counselor to practice art therapy whenever I feel that kind of way. But I don't always do that. I usually just pick up my phone and try to distract myself with social media and whatever. So I decided that instead of documenting what apps I go on, I decided to document how many times do I pick up my phone to distract myself, and what are those feelings that I want to distract myself from. So really this project was kind of an opportunity for me to practice art therapy and self-reflect at the same time, which is ironic because it was supposed to be like the most busy time for me, or like the time where I'm supposed to be distracted. Yeah, so I came up with like the way I presented it is that I had like a content sheet at the beginning, and then an introduction, which is basically what I just said. And then I did some research on art therapy, and on the right, if you can see, that this is different kinds of art therapy that I would usually practice. Blind contour drawings or line drawings, or my favorite, which is watercoloring. So when I was documenting the urges I would have to pick up my phone to distract myself, I came up with a system, which is a crucial part of coming up with collecting data, right? I don't know if you guys can see my cursor. Can you guys see my cursor and where I'm pointing?
The other way that we can name the system is also a key. When you create a key in relation to data, is assigning an icon or assigning a kind of visual representation to a certain category of data, so that you can then create a visualization based on the icons.
Yes.
Okay.
So here I color coded different feelings. So yellow is stress, and blue is anxiety, and red is depression. And I relied on primary colors just because in my mind, these are what I think are primary feelings. And on the right, if you can see, I had different patterns. So horizontal lines are for personal struggles, and dots are for education-related problems. So here in the bottom, if you can see, this is an example. So blue is basically anxiety, and then vertical stripes are family reasons. So anxiety for family reasons, for example. And that is how I decided to communicate my data collection. This is the final presentation of how I'm communicating my data, or the presentation of it. So on the right is actually all of the feelings layered on top of each other, which is an idea that I had to kind of show to present my documentations on two different scales. So if you guys look closely, there is, on the right, you can see that there's like a black square that is supposed to show contrast between like what I was feeling in that very moment and how I was zen and calm, versus the chaos of colors and stripes and patterns around it. Yeah, just to kind of show what I could have been distracted with and what I'm distracting myself with right now. Yeah, that's it. Do you guys have any questions? I don't know if that was too quick.
Wait. I think there's something that we're missing, which is the kinds of insights you were able to have about yourself in the process of the data gathering. You know, this is really, I think your work, for me, it's very beautiful because it has the symbolism. It's really complex, and sometimes and then you're also an artist, so artists have usually a difficulty to be able to put in words the experience itself, and you do it very beautifully, but maybe I can help you. So first of all, let's think about the square, right?
Yeah.
Because you chose the square, and you're using the color black as an absence, right? As a sort of an emptiness. And when you mention Zen, it's really interesting because you're choosing to represent yourself as emptiness, right? And in philosophy, if you study philosophy, the ground of existence comes from this infinite, the concept of the absolute that's impossible to represent. So when you choose this square, you're actually saying that it's impossible to represent, right? And I think this is very beautiful to be able to recognize that part of yourself that is so deep, right, that you cannot even represent, but it's there, right? And it's at the core of everything.
Yeah.
So, and I think this is very mature, because you are seeing that there is a difference between what I really am and all the emotions around me and all the chaos of the environment around me, and that comes also from the digital experiences and the overload of information that we have. This is something as well that came from the work, especially from your colleagues as well.
Yeah.
They started to realize, oh my God, how it's so much information every single day, right? That we have to that we process like ongoing, every day, on every time. It's so much information, right? And trying to filter those streams, different kinds of streams, in relation to what is relevant and what is helpful to me in one hand, and what is not helpful to me
Yeah.
at all. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Were you able to make
Yeah.
that distinction?
Yeah, I think for me, even like the the process of collecting the data was like a huge part of the experience, because where other people can just like collect data on what they're seeing or what kind of ads they're getting or whatever, I was kind of collecting or paying attention to my urges, you know, which sometimes can be a hard thing to do. Like I would pay attention to times where I'm really stressed and just want to distract myself, and instead of actually distracting myself, which is something that I would really want to do at that moment, I would write down the time or what kind of, like, basically reflect on what I am feeling. So it was a really long process of reflection, basically, is how I looked at it at the end, which is a hard thing to do, but at the same time, I don't know, it was a really therapeutic kind of exercise, you know. If I can look at this project as something that really isn't just like an assignment or a task that I had to do, it was a therapeutic process or exercise at times of like
And
absolute chaos.
when you look at the picture, at the data visualization that you created, do you see it as a portrait?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's I don't know, I kind of look at it as like an abstract painting, maybe. I am very, yeah, I'm very inspired by Mondrian, and I think that's kind of what I was inspired with when I wanted to present it and how I wanted to present it. And another thing, I decided to like not take a literal approach to it. Um, I decided to like abstract it. I wanted it to look abstract, and I wanted because I wanted the system or the key, as you said, to be a huge part of it. You know, this portrait, as you were saying, is kind of invalid or irrelevant if you don't know the key behind it.
Yes, you need exactly. That's what makes it a data visualization. If you
Yeah.
don't have a key, then and it's also it's coded, right?
Yes.
So you have two layers in the image. You
Yeah.
have the aesthetic experience, which is a whole, right? Which for me it's very powerful. Let's say I didn't know anything about the image, right? And I don't know that there's anything more to it. For me, it still is very powerful, you know,
Yeah.
as a just on its own. It's still very powerful. But when you realize that it's actually presenting a very complex subjective experience, and articulating the experience around your sense of self, then it takes it to a whole other level, right?
Yeah.
And so, and what the reason why I wanted to bring your work to the focus is that the nature of what you've done is very, how can I say, it stands it stands in clear opposition to the automated ways that the internet makes the assessment about ourselves, right? So we can all have those apps installed in our phones that can track what we are doing, and then they can create an automated graph on that shows us what we've done, right? This is very easy now. You can have that for everything. How many of you, for example, have apps that track how many miles you've walked or how many calories you've eaten? There's so many apps. Almost everyone has one or two of those apps installed on their phone, right? And once you, yes, anyone else? Adam, which one do you have, Adam?
No, I have like it is built into my software, so I can't remove it.
Healthify. Yes, I have around 3. Yes, mostly everyone. So what I'm trying to do here is, when I ask the question of the workshop, does the internet know who you truly are? What am I asking you? I'm asking you to, first to realize, right, that anything that is getting that you're maybe, you know, most people are not aware that everything you are doing, every single thing you are doing on the internet is generating a data profile about you. No matter what you're doing, every single post you are sharing in your social media feeds, every single product or service you are looking for on Google is generating a digital trace. And the work that Mohammed Bazin has done here is a very different kind of data portrait. It shows us from the other side of the human side of technology, right? Because when you go on your phone, right? So on say on Healthify or on Samsung Health, right? And you ask for the graph, right? And you press the button and then you see the graph that's showing you something about you, right? When you have that image, you are looking at a certain kind of data portrait that the algorithms that were created by the engineers behind the internet are giving to you. And then you're going to try to represent yourself based on that image that's being shown to you. This is something that's coming from this big universe of data, right? Being processed and then being shown to you. But what Bazin has done is the opposite. What Bazin has done is, okay, he stepped outside of the internet, and he started to do the opposite. He started to map his state of mind when he felt the need to plug in the internet. So he was actually mapping his relationship to the internet, his relationship. So when we look into the image that he created, we're looking at first off, we're looking at the application of a specific methodology, which is the methodology of data visualization, which is to choose an experience, define the different categories that you're going to be working with. Then you have to create a system of keys in which you're going to organize different kinds of information, different kinds of data, and you're going to assign certain visual icons to them, like Basim has done. Once you have that ready, you have to do something else, which is you have to calculate proportion. Because if you don't have a very accurate proportion to the space in which you're going to work with the icons and the visual elements, then your image is not going to be representative of your experience. So when we look to this image that Basim has created, it's art, but it's so much more than that, right? It's not so simple to create something like this. It's not very simple, because the size of each one of those elements is proportional to the frequency and duration of each of those experiences. So I think that this is a topic that, of course, can we know how he has done this? Basim, can you explain just a little bit about the methodology, your methodology?
When it came to the making of the presentation itself?
No, just like how you would have like maybe start by saying how you started doing your watercolors first.
Oh yeah.
You know, and then you created the icons based on the emotions, and then you had a certain time of the day where you would do that, and then you had to translate that into digital formats. That kind of story of like
Yes.
the actual steps.
Yeah. So basically, we had this project was supposed to be analog, so we had to. It wasn't supposed to be digital. This was pre the pandemic, right? So the way I would try to do it, it wouldn't work sometimes, but I would try to actually watercolor these stripes whenever I have the urge to distract myself with my phone, just to like try to make it actually work, if that makes sense. Like I would try to, instead of documenting or writing down, the time or the date of when I am distracted, I would actually paint stripes of watercolor. But then after the pandemic, we had to turn it into a digital project. So I would look into the documentations that I would have and try to translate them digitally, basically. So instead of doing watercolors, I decided I had color-coded watercolors. So instead of doing that, I came up with the idea of patterns, because I thought that it would actually have like a clearer code or system to color code, but also to come up with a pattern for each reasoning behind my feelings. Yeah, and then
You
I
have
did
a question, Basim. Tasneem
Yes.
is asking, how did you get the proportion? Okay, can we know how you have done the colors, but how about the size lines in boxes?
Well, I used Photoshop and InDesign to compile everything together. The patterns do detect my feelings, and I did come up with a code for each feeling and the reasoning behind it. And the size of the lines and checks, that is a good question. And I think you mean like the size of each stripe or each shape or whatever. But I kind of randomized it. because it was okay. So what I was thinking is that maybe this is a bit too, like, it's becoming a bit too rigid or robotic. So I decided that maybe I should have like some aspects that are kind of personal or based on like just my feelings, you know. So that's why the shapes are completely randomized, just depending on how I'm feeling, you know. In the actual watercolor sheet that I had, um, some of the shapes were like completely like absolutely chaotic and like crazy, you know, just out of like born in the moment and with no system. So the system was in the color and not the shapes or the size of each stripe or layer, if that makes sense.
I think in your case, it's a little bit of a poetic. You have a little bit of poetic license because you are actually measuring something that it's impossible to measure, which is emotions. So in that case, you were trying to adapt a methodology, right? That's very accurate, which is data visualization, but
Yeah,
your data is not completely measurable, right?
yeah,
So you're trying to adapt adapt the intensity of the experience, because that's the only way that you can measure really when it comes to emotions. It's this kind of subjective evaluation of intensity, right?
yeah.
And then you were trying to translate that uh, somehow. Okay, thank you so much, Basim. I know you
You're
have
very welcome.
you have an appointment, right?
Yes, I do.
Anyone has any final question for
Yes,
Basim before he
please. I
leaves?
would really like to hear from you guys. What are your thoughts? What concepts of this are new to you? What did you guys like learn anything, if anything? What is happening? I would really like to hear from you guys.
You can speak, everyone. It's okay. You can ask him.
Or you can type, or it's okay.
Yes, typing it's okay as well.
Okay.
That's okay. I think everybody's still processing. It's a lot of
Yeah.
information,
Yeah.
and it's a new topic, right?
Yes.
We had many classes to discuss, right? And Joe is saying that everything's no, Husaifa is saying that everything's clear, and that and Joe is saying almost everything was new for me. It was a really insightful experience on how other people perceive different things.
Yes,
That
definitely. Um, it's really important for you guys to like always think, how would you like present something? You know, it's fun to like think how would you personalize a system, an idea, not only data, but like how would you present things in the clearest way possible and like aesthetically, you know? It's a really fun thing to do, and it requires like a lot of thinking, and it's like a puzzle really. So I encourage you guys to like always think of that when you see a poster with data on it, when you see an idea that you would like to communicate, an idea that you're fascinated with, it's a good thing to do.
great. Thank you so much, Basim.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Okay, everyone. So I want to do a little bit of an activity uh, for you. Okay, I want you to take 5 minutes right now, and you don't have to unplug. You can stay here with on Zoom. But I want you to go on your phones or on a social media profile that you have and see what was the last ad that you saw. And think about the reason why you're seeing that ad, and think about if the ad represents who you are, if it's useful to you, or if it's related to your identity somehow. And then when you come back in 5 minutes, we're going to share, okay, with each other, what kind of experience we had when we look back into the last ad that you've seen. Okay, so I'll see you in 5 minutes. I want everybody to come back with something to say. Okay, I'll see you in 5 minutes. Okay, everyone. So, can anyone let me know what was the last ad that they saw online? I'll start by telling mine, okay? So I quickly went on Twitter and I saw 3 ads very close to each other on the same timeline. And one was for MasterCard, the other one was for IBM, and the other one is for Nissan. So from your perspective, why do you think I'm seeing those ads? Oh my God. Razan is telling me that she saw the same ads as me, which means I do. I need a car. I don't have a car. Can you imagine that? How I'm not now, something is up, right? Because I am renting a car now. Yeah, exactly. So what the 3 are kind of connected, right? So for me to get a car, maybe I need a card. So then the MasterCard comes together with the car, so then I can use one to buy the other based on my search preferences, right? Yeah. Can I hear from you now? Let's check from you. Shabir, did you also see car ads? Can everyone let me know what did they see? KFC. Oh, because it's almost lunchtime. Artificial intelligence short course that was on my profile. App developing. Hussein saw car ads. Game ads. Graphic designing. Video game ads. Seems to be pretty on point. Laptops, ads about summer, sports jersey, guitar course, politics. Oh, politics. iPhone, phone ads. Oh, video game ads, sports. Okay. Can you tell me if you think that this is representative of your interests? You can answer with a yes or no, just for me to. Mostly everyone is saying yes. Mostly everyone is saying yes. Okay. Okay. So what can we know and learn from this? Can you tell me? What can we learn from this experience of being aware of the logic behind the environment? Do you agree that when you go online, we are entering a space that is more personalized than physical space? Do you agree with me in relation to that? Yeah, right? Because when you go on the street, right? You take your car and you drive and you go to the shopping mall and you see many ads, right? On the roads, right? You see the billboard signs, you see in the shopping mall, you know, you have the big boards, you see posters. But when you go in the physical world, the ads that you see are being directed towards everyone, right? Or maybe they're directed at the people that live in a certain neighborhood, maybe. But most of them are actually directed towards everyone. But what happens when we go online? It's not so open anymore, right? When you go online in the space that, especially social media, when you go in your Twitter feed, in your Facebook feed, it's very personal. Can you answer me something? Can I ask you something? Do you have Facebook? Yes or no? No, 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 no. Do you have Snapchat? Yes, 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 yes. Most people have Snapchat. So if you go on Snapchat, is it going to look anywhere near the Facebook of your mom? The things that your mom sees on her Facebook, is it going to be similar to the things that you see on your Snapchat? Not at all, right? Not at all. Completely different. Exactly. Nope, nope, nope. Exactly. That's my point. Do you agree? Like another world. Like another world. Yes. It's like a completely different world, right? So imagine this. The digital world that a person lives in, because the same way that we live in a city or we live in a space, right now I'm at my house. This is the space I live in. When I go on the internet, I'm also entering a space. When I go on social media, I'm also entering a space. There's a space that I live in my social media. That's my page. My social media feed is my little house, right? And what comes inside my little house is the ads that I have no control about, which is the algorithms that are choosing and putting these ads inside my little house, my little Facebook, my little Snapchat feed, and the things that I'm following. So I'm choosing to invite that kind of information into my house. So what happens? This is an interesting question. What happens when the things that you are seeing are being directed towards you, but you're not even aware that it's an ad? Can that happen? Can you maybe start posting, seeing things that you think you are following, but yeah, Taha, can you tell me how? Yes, yes, yes. How? Adam is saying no because it's written sponsored by blah blah blah. That's very interesting. Now let me ask you something. Let's say they make it like a post form. Yes, that's exactly how, Taha. That's exactly how. Now I'm going to teach you something very, very important. Do you know that sometimes it's not even humans that are doing that? Sometimes it's little smart little things, smart little algorithms called bots. And I'm actually going to type that into the chat. Oh, sorry, it's not going to everyone. Just a second. Bots. What are bots? Do you know what are social media bots? That's a very important thing for you to know. Everyone who has algorithms. Yes, bots are little algorithms, but you don't really know that they are algorithms, and they look like humans. They many often, a lot of times, you see a profile that has a picture of a human. That's a very nice definition of a bot. Thanks, Shabir. But it's not really a human, and it's pretending to be one. So you have to be very, very careful. Very, very careful, because sometimes a lot of information that you think are coming from humans, it's not coming from humans, especially on Twitter. Yes, bots often imitate or replace a human user's behavior. Has anyone here ever had an experience with a bot? Can you tell me about it? Recaptchas. Recaptchas, one calling Etisalat in games. Yes. Okay. How was the experience? Were you like fooled or into thinking that it was a human, or did you know right away that it wasn't a human? It wasn't good. It felt fake. Okay. Okay, now let's go back to the image of the space. The space that we are right now. I'm here in the physical space, right? Touching my wall, but I'm also in a virtual space. You can all see me in Zoom. Zoom is this space that you can't really touch, but we're all there. I cannot see you, but I know that you're there. You're listening to me. So I'm in both spaces at the same time. So let's think about social media again. When you go on Facebook or Snapchat and you take a look at your social media feed, do you agree that that is this kind of very personalized individual space, right? You agree with me with that? That's what we call a media bubble. It's a bubble, you know. That's the word that we are giving. So each of us, we have our little bubbles in each of the spaces that we participate online, right? And in those little bubbles, the things that come inside and become our little environment are those the kinds of combination between data and information and content, the combination between the things that we choose and the things that we don't choose, but that for some reason or another, they show up. And so the whole point of me talking about these concepts with you is for you to realize that you have to be very, very careful when you are inhabiting those spaces, right? Filter bubble, that's such a very good question. Thank you so much, Shabir. A filter bubble is the same thing, but it's a little bit different. Because a filter bubble is when you really go the extra mile to do not see and do not hear anything that you don't like. So let's say you only follow certain kinds of people that agree with you. Okay, and for example, every time you see something that you don't like, you block it. So when you do that, it can be a good something that can be good, because this is something that's actually very helpful. About, remember when Basim was showing his presentation and he was showing us the kinds of emotions that he was experiencing with the information overload, and that and how digital communication sometimes can really create stress, right? So he was talking about these things, and he created this kind of mechanism that, okay, I'm not going to see these kinds of content because it's not good for me. So he creates this kind of filter. He creates a filter so that his bubble is more protected. And there's some very different ways that you can do that. This is not, we don't have time to do this today, but this is also something that we can do in the future, to talk about all the different kinds of ways that you can, mechanisms and techniques that you can apply to your social media feeds so that it's more healthy for you. So this is something that can really help you, so not to be disturbed by content that is not healthy for you, right? So anyone have any questions for me about the course, about data aesthetics? About the IDI? This is the time to make questions. I'm going to open up for questions because we don't have so much time. So let's do a little quick recap. So the initial question that we asked today was, does the internet know who you truly are? We have explored the mechanisms behind digital algorithms and how every time you go online, you are creating digital footprints, digital traces. So there is a big network of artificial intelligence and big data in the internet that's always processing everything we do and automatically generating data about each one of us, right? So this creates various kinds of data artifacts that are then sold to different companies so that the advertisement can appear in our feeds. So we explored a little bit about that, about this kind of dynamics between the way that we use the internet, the way that we create these digital footprints, and the way that these footprints are then used to guide advertisements and to guide the ways that we see those kinds of contents that keep showing up in our social media feeds. This is something we've done. Then we talked about Basim's work, in which he kind of flipped the gaze from digital footprints then being used by artificial intelligence. He flipped that dynamic and he started observing himself instead. He started to observe, how do I feel when I interact with those social media feeds? And what kind of effect that my interaction with these technologies is having on myself? Then he started to observe that, and he created this kind of visual system to represent the impact, the emotional impact that digital interaction was having in himself. And then he created this beautiful data portrait that we saw, and he talked about his experience. Then I asked you to see about your ad, the last ad that you saw. Most of you agreed that it's very connected to your interests. Most everyone was seeing things that they really are interested in, and which reveals that it's very sophisticated. The algorithms are very sophisticated, and it's really ubiquitous. It's everywhere. And we talked a little bit about the elements of this, right? We talked a little bit about bubbles, digital bubbles. We talked a little bit about the different ecosystems that we all inhabit, and how different it is, right? From depending on who you are, your age, right? So for example, if you're a little bit older, you're probably going to use Facebook. If you're younger, you're definitely not going to use Facebook. Most of you don't have Facebook. So on and so forth. And so I really hope that this was useful to you and helpful, and that this brings something new, some new perspective on this very interesting relationship between ourselves and the internet. And I'm just going to open to final questions. And thank you so much for coming. Mufadal, can we regulate SEO to not compromise our privacy? That is a very, very important initiative. And right now, I can tell you that this is a big challenge, and a lot of effort is being put into this by different governments. And I think that I can say with a lot of confidence that the governments that are the most advanced are the European Union. The European Union is really focused on understanding the problem. And the problem is because the big companies, right, the big ones, such as Google, Facebook, for example, they don't give the transparency in relation to the true way of how these algorithms are put into play. So we don't have the transparency, and it's very hard to regulate something that you can't really see. So because the excuse is because of the intellectual property. If they show how things work, then it's not a secret, a business secret anymore. So it's kind of a paradox. So that's the problem. And a lot of governments are trying to come up with ways to work around this issue. So definitely this is there's more awareness about the issue. The reason why I wanted to have this workshop about this topic, and I brought this to my students also, is to raise awareness. And that especially when you're studying multimedia design, you're not simply just creating something. You are creating something that's going to become almost alive in this environment that is the internet, right? And it's going to have to, whatever it is that you do online, it's going to be much more than just an artifact or a website. It's much more than that. It's about communities, it's about connections. So yes. Another question. Oh my God, so many questions. Can we keep our privacy with VPN? I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure. I think to a certain level, yes, but then if really people who really understand how to break the firewalls, then I don't think you can really trust. China has removed Google from their IP so that they can have more secure personal data. Yeah, that's why. If we search something on Instagram, then would that same thing Google suggested us to search? Most probably, because there's also this kind of agreement between the big players, right? The big ones, like such as Google, Facebook, Instagram. To a certain extent, the big players create this kind of shared pool that they share themselves in relation to information. How to know if that ad is actually real and not a phishing hack or virus? That is a very difficult one. And it's becoming actually harder and harder nowadays, because the more advanced that artificial intelligence gets, the harder it is for us to see the difference. So I'm afraid this is really not an easy one to answer, because I think that you have to, when in doubt, do not click on ads. I think that the label promoted is something. It's a step in the right direction. When it allows us to see that something was paid for, but I think when in doubt, my advice is for you not to click. How God we trust a site like the spin the wheel to win this? What can you tell me a little bit about this site? Spin the wheel. What is it? Is it like a lottery? Well, yeah. Yes. I think that the internet nowadays, it's a place where it really requires a lot of awareness for you to know what you are doing, where you are going, what are you interacting with. Make sure that yes, that's a good rule. If it's too good to be true, don't click. That's true. That's true. So thank you for coming. Thank you so much, and I hope this was helpful to you. And the internet is such a big part of our lives. It's unavoidable. Thanks to the internet, we are here. Thanks to the internet, in the middle of a lockdown, we are able to still be together. And so, such a wonderful achievement the internet is. However, we do need to be very aware, and we do need to be careful, especially when sharing things about our own selves, because you're never going to be able to erase, right? You have to think about that, especially you, the young ones. Everything that you're posting, once it's on the internet, I had a professor that he used to say, the internet is like a glass of water. Once, and whatever you do in the internet, it's like putting a drop of ink in that glass of water. You can never take it out. It's gone. If you share something that now it's important to you, but you have to think, is this going to be, do I want this to be attached to the image, my identity, when I grow up? If you're in doubt, don't share it. Don't do it, because once something is on the internet, you can't really take it out. The internet kind of eats it, and that's it. That's it. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining today. And it was really lovely to talk to you. And I hope this was thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you very much, Aisha.